This is a lime. It's green, sour, and will hopefully make a very nice part of the salsa I'm making this evening. In the popular consciousness, this family of small green citrus fruits are associated with a number of different signature dishes and cuisines. From Persian kebabs to key lime pie, limes are used in scores of different ubiquitous dishes across the world. But to the Western world, they're no more ubiquitous than to Mexican cooking. Whilst India might be the world's largest producer of lemons and limes, it's Hispanic culture that the majority of the English-speaking world associates with their usage, from sauces and salsas to tequilas and chasers. But despite their perceived ubiquity to the Mexican world, limes aren't actually native to that area. In fact, almost all citrus fruits can trace their origins back to nearly half the world away. The citrus genre of fruit is a wide and varied one. It encompasses everything from tiny limes to enormous grapefruits, but uniformly it originates from the tropical and subtropical regions of Southeast Asia and the oceanic islands around it. Because the domestication of the genus involved a large amount of crossbreeding and hybridization, we don't know exactly when citrus fruits became common on the dinner tables, but we have identified 7 ancestral species that make up the oldest examples we know of the genus. Those are the pomelo, the citron, the true mandarin, the papeda, the Ichang papeda, the kaffir lime, and the kumquat. Almost every other fruit we commercially identify as citrus is a hybrid of 2 or more of these species. On the screen at the moment is a ternary diagram showing just that. It explains how hybridization of pomelos, citrons, and true mandarins has led to the majority of the common types of oranges and lemons. These crossbreedings have occurred over centuries, some deliberate, some accidental, and have resulted in the wide variety of citrus fruit we have at the moment. The Persian lime, which is, as far as I can tell, what this particular lime is a hybrid of a key lime, in itself a hybrid of a kaffir lime and a citron, and a lemon, which is a hybrid of a bitter orange and a citron. Given that a bitter orange itself is a hybrid between a pomelo and a true mandarin, you can see how things get quite confusing very quickly. Despite their similar sources of origin, though, citrus fruits made their way over to Europe in very different timeframes. Whilst lemons first appear in records in the 2nd century AD, limes appear in the Mediterranean as early as 1200 BCE, with ancestral kaffir limes carried along the spice and incense trade routes from east to west. It's not until the colonial period, though, that we really start seeing limes making their way into the European palate, for reasons that bring us pretty neatly into our second major fact about limes. We all know of the lime as a tasty, sour flavouring in cooking and beyond. But limes and other citrus fruits also serve important nutritional purposes. They're one of the most effective and easiest stored sources of vitamin C. Most sources of vitamin C, a key part of maintaining the body's skin, bones, teeth, cartilage, most of kind of what keeps you together, they have a short shelf life, and they're often softer, difficult to store fruits such as currants and berries. The protective outer layer of citrus fruits, though, makes them much tougher and keeps them safe from decay for much longer as long as storage is appropriate. This made them a vital part of the colonial era, most importantly the age of sail. Keeping citrus fruits on board meant that sailors could stave off scurvy, the otherwise debilitating affliction that is caused by a lack of vitamin C. Now, anyone who's familiar with British stereotypes has probably seen where I'm going by now. Limeys. The British Navy became famous as the first to adopt the use of citrus on a widespread scale. They kept barrels of limes on board their ship to minimise the risk of scurvy. What's lesser known, though, is that whilst it's a constant stereotype now, the usage of limes was in fact a very tightly kept secret at the time. Scurvy was constant in navies at the time. It set a strict limit on how long any ship could stay at sea for. After you hit that limit, you ran out of vitamin C, your crew's health went downhill pretty rapidly. Britain's lime-keeping habits, therefore, gave them a significant edge over the other colonial powers of the time. It allowed their crews to stay healthier and more active for far longer than their competitors, and most importantly allowed them to keep patrolling the seas. However, whilst the British use of limes was a very effective remedy and gave Britain a much needed edge, limes are in fact one of the worst sources of vitamin C of the citrus fruits. The most effective source, oranges, were probably too soft to store on ships without being crushed, but the similar hardy lemons, which unlike limes were easily available across Europe, are a far better source of the vitamin. The reason that limes were used is, beyond the obvious parts of the science of the time not really being able to come to that conclusion, is that limes had one crucial key advantage to the Navy. They were made in British plantations in the West Indies. The limes were still significantly more expensive to produce than just purchasing lemons from European powers, but they were made by British slaves, so of course they were going to be more effective, right? Unfortunately, or perhaps very fortunately, the laws of nutrition don't listen to British hubris. But comparatively ineffective and overly expensive as they were, the limes still did the job required of them, keeping British sailors healthier for longer and ensuring Britain's naval dominance of the period. Back in the modern world then, limes are, pretty literally, much more of a mixed bag. Just like how a mandarin, a clementine, and the more traditional navel oranges are all still broadly called oranges by definition, there are a wide variety of different citrus fruits that all call themselves limes. And whilst you're unlikely to find them labelled as anything else than just lime in the supermarket, exactly which of these different fruits you're using varies depending on where you live in the world. The Persian lime I've been showing you is the predominant variety across Europe, but across the Atlantic in America, the aptly named Mexican lime and the Floridian key lime are the common varieties. If you head to the Middle East and Asia, you find the ancestral bitter kaffir limes are claiming their place as the head of the family in cuisine over there. And that's just naming the dominant ones. There are tens, if not hundreds, of different hybridized varieties of limes being grown across the world, each with their own similar but distinct flavour profile. If you've ever made a cultural dish using limes from a different country, say you've been on holiday and tried to recreate something coming back, but it hasn't quite tasted the same, that's probably one of the reasons why. Limes are used all across the world and labelled with the generic, label as such. But they are different products from place to place, and it serves anybody to treat them as such. So there we go. Limes. Nature's way of letting us know that no matter how recursive the family trees of Victorian-era European royalty were, there's always something more into bread.